Good evening. The jury in the cases of the three white men charged in the killing of an unarmed black man, Ahmaud Arbery, just wrapped up its first day of deliberation. It's one of three cases we're focused on this evening. All have captured the attention of Americans across the political spectrum and delve into issues of either race or far-right extremism. And also, importantly, whether we're too divided as a nation to agree on an appropriate definition of the word justice. I'm John Berman, in for Anderson. We'll get to the men charged for killing Ahmaud Arbery in a moment, but we begin with the breaking news on a pair of legal cases that involve two of the most tragic episodes of violent right-wing extremism in this country's recent history. First, in Charlottesville, Virginia, where a partial verdict was announced just hours ago in a civil case brought against some of those involved with that 2017 Unite the Right rally that left one woman, Heather Heyer, dead. In a moment, we'll hear reaction from her mother. First, though, CNN's Ellie Reeve joins us now. Ellie, what can you tell us about the verdict?
Well, the jury was hung on the question of federal conspiracy charges relating to a law passed in the 1870s to fight the KKK. But they did find these guys liable under a Virginia conspiracy law. And that's really interesting because the other defendants took great pains to say they never had any contact with James Alex Fields, who was convicted of first-degree murder for driving his car into a crowd and killing Heather Heyer. He's serving a life sentence. What it means is that the jury finds that, at least in some part, the leaders of the group who glamorized violence or planned for it at the event are in some way responsible for those who came to the event and participated in that violence.
And Ellie, I should note, you were there that night. You were there in 2017. You are there now to see this jury's decision on this. And there's a lot of money at play, a lot of money. What can you tell us about that?
There is. So there are two parts of that weekend. There was a torch march, which had no permit, and there was a rally, which did have a permit. Those who participated in the torch march are being held responsible for a lot more money than those that did not. Another strange thing is that on the conspiracy charge, and that's the one that hits all the defendants, they've awarded very low numbers for compensatory damages, $1 or $0. But they awarded $500,000 or $1 million in punitive damages. And the Supreme Court has held that the ratio between those two has to be a lot smaller, like at most 1 to 10. And so that means that the judge will possibly have to lower that from 6 figures to 2 or 3.
Oh, that's interesting. So this number could change. The total number is over $20 million now, but that number could be brought down substantially, which impacts, I suppose, my next question, Ellie, which is it likely that this case, the outcome, will have what the plaintiff's side wanted here, which is to be a deterrent for white supremacist organizing in the future?
Well, it clearly sends a message that for people who explicitly call for violence, there could be consequences if somebody is inspired by that to do it. Most of the people involved in this case have quit organizing. Richard Spencer says he hates the alt-right and it hates him back. Defendant Matt Heimbach has been talking to me about the long-term consequences of this. He, during this trial, got fired from McDonald's because someone saw him on the news and figured out that he was a professional racist. So yeah, like a lot of these guys are out of the movement, but the old money white nationalists behind the scenes who funded them and nurtured them, they weren't involved in this case. And so they're still out there.
Huh. Well, Ellie Reeve, as I said, you were there that night in 2017. You're there tonight. I imagine there are more chapters in the future you'll be covering as well. We appreciate the work you're doing on this.
Thank you.
As we mentioned, one woman was killed during that 2017 rally. Her name was Heather Heyer, a 32-year-old paralegal. She was killed when one of the defendants drove his car into a crowd of counter-protesters. That man is now serving multiple life sentences. We're honored that Heather's mother, Susan Bro, could join us tonight. Susan, very nice to see you. We appreciate you being with us. When you heard what the jury decided today, what went through your mind?
Well, my first question was trying to understand why they were not convicted on 1 and 2, and it took a while to parse out that was federal related. But yeah, I was glad the jury was able to recognize that. I mean, even when the evidence seems very clear, you can't always determine what a jury is going to say or do. So I was glad they were able to recognize the preponderance of evidence definitely showed the clients to be guilty. And the evidence was their own words. That was the beauty of the case, that Integrity for America spent a great deal of time finding the defendant's own words to use in the case.
So this partial verdict, and obviously the previous criminal trial of James Fields Jr., does this feel like enough accountability for you? Is this what justice in your mind looks like?
I guess I don't know that we ever feel justice in a murder case. This is the first, and God knows, I hope the only murder in my life. Um, I don't know that you ever feel complete justice, but I don't know what else could be done. I think that this speaks volumes to trying to set things straight.
Trying to set things straight. What is it that you hope that people take away from the jury's decision today in terms of any larger message about what is and isn't acceptable in this country?
Well, the defendants seem to want to argue that their speech was protected by First Amendment rights. And I would say speech is protected, action from that speech is not protected. So when you speak and you yourself and others act on that speech, it is no longer protected. Um, it's funny because I've often said, think before you speak. So, yeah, definitely in this case.
What about
Um,
healing? What about healing and coming together?
with who? I mean, those of us who were not doing the hate speech were coming together in the first place. And I would like to think that we could have a meeting of minds across dividing lines, but I'm not hearing any form of repentance or sorriness from the defendants in the case. They spent most of the case kind of jovially, pardon my word, jokingly presenting their evidence in their defense, and didn't show remorse. They have not changed. So, no, I have no interest in making amends with those people.
No, and that's not what I was suggesting at all. I was just talking about,
Was I?
believe me, and I hear you. I hear what you're saying there. I was speaking more about the divisions that we're seeing day in and day out in society and sort of giving a sense of what is acceptable and not acceptable. And this jury may have laid down a marker and said, this isn't right. That being said, I want you to talk about what is right. I want you to talk about your daughter, Heather Heyer, for us. Just remind us who she was and what you want her legacy to be.
Well, first off, I need people to stop putting Heather on a pedestal. She was a normal 32-year-old feisty woman. Um, she had her rough edges, just like anybody. And she was a random murder in a mass car attack. She just happened to be the one that took the brunt force, and it hit her aorta and her abdomen and bled out in 4 places. She was not assassinated. She was not a saint. She was a normal person. So what I want you to take away from that is stand up and do the right thing. You don't know what kind of impact that will have. Um, even now, 4 years later, I'm talking on CNN, and after this, I'll be talking to some international press, because the impact of that one small act has been felt around the world. But I also want to congratulate the plaintiffs in this case and Integrity for America. We were not party to the trial, Heather nor the foundation, but I strongly supported the case, and am very proud of the plaintiffs for not buckling under pressure when questioned by the defendants, who were acting as their own lawyers, particularly. Um, from what I understand, they were antagonized and picked at a bit to try to make them break down or lash out, and they did not do so. So I'm very proud of them.
Well, Susan Bro, stand up and do the right thing.
Yes.
That's a message. That's the message I'm getting from you tonight. I really do appreciate you being with us. I appreciate your words and your guidance through this. Be well, and we look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
We also want to highlight the foundation you mentioned that you've created to honor your daughter. You can find details at heatherheyerfoundation.org. There's a scholarship program for individuals. Sorry, go ahead.
.com.
HeatherHeyer.com.
That was a mistake made when it was formed, and we've just kept with it. It's .com, not .org.
We'll fix it right now. We have it right on the screen, HeatherHeyerFoundation.com. There are programs for individuals who are dedicated to promoting positive social change. And now, thank you very much, Susan.